Welcome, everyone. Here's the intro for week 4. This week, we're going to be focusing on relationships. So in the past couple of weeks, we've been working on forgiving ourselves, being in gratitude with ourselves, developing a loving communication with ourselves. This past week, with week 3, we were working on developing a more loving communicative relationship with our bodies. That's a long journey. Even for me, I am still working on that on a daily basis. There are days that I see outfits of myself and I go, that doesn't look right on me. And I really can judge myself harshly. Then I go back into the practice of finding gratitude, going back into the breath, going back and reminding myself that, yes, I am so much more than a body. This body is a receptacle of love, is a receiver of messages, as well as a messenger of messages. It receives implicit messages and helps us to remember and rewind and replay certain memories that we have in our head, some to protect us, some that are overly sensitive, such as that fire alarm that we were working on about getting too much information and how to process it all. And that's what the breath is all about. So those are what we're working on with the past week, because once we clean up the receptors, right? Once we adjust what lenses we are looking through, once we understand, okay, there are certain things I'm allowing fear to overrun. I'm allowing shame and guilt to overrun the bus instead of trying to find that connective connection of love to understand what this message is about. What is fear trying to tell me? What is this emotion trying to tell me? What memory does it remember? Can I breathe through it? What assistance do I need to try to process this particular emotion, memory, or thing that's coming up for me? You know what I mean? So that's a journey that we continue to have. I continue to have that journey, in particularly with some of the messages that I remember, the implicit messages that I have recorded from my upbringing that I am now seeing in a different lens and going, oh, that was placed in me because I was scared, or my caregiver was scared of me being abducted or being hurt. So that particular message was given to me. I don't have to be that way anymore. I can be cautious, but not overrun by fear. Hopefully that clarifies. So once we work that work within ourselves, having relationships with others may become a little bit easier. But again, that doesn't mean that the work within ourselves, oh yeah, I stepped forward into a new healing, it stopped. It continues. So the more we heal ourselves, the better we can perform with other relationships. The more we have that beautiful connection within us, the me, the not just the me, we go from the physical to the I am one with the universe, and to have that deeper connection with that understanding that I have a universe living within me, and I am also part of a grander scheme, also a universe as well, that we can allow ourselves to have a better communicative, loving relationship with others, because we're continuously developing a loving, communicative relationship within ourselves. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so let's start week 4, shall we? Relationships. You practice loving the divine, loving the universe, loving spirit by loving another human. But the quote is by Olivia Harrison. You practice loving God by loving another human. I just changed the word to make it more digestible to some, if the word God can be triggering for some individuals. Whatever relates to you, whatever resonates with you, you accept throughout the rest. Let's continue with week 4. I can safely say that the majority of the people who read my books or attend my lectures do so because of a tripped up relationship. I got introduced to Gabby because of that. I was starting a new healing relationship after leaving and divorcing my first husband, trying to identify myself once again. Whether it's with a business partner, a romantic partner, a family member, or a past lover, rocky relationships are where the ego really goes to town. Ego-based relationships are nightmares. When your relationships are run by fear, all kinds of crazy stuff comes up. Jealousy, judgment, attack, anger, and unnecessary resentment. I went to, just to stop right here, I went to Al-Anon meeting. I won't tell you why, but I went to an Al-Anon meeting, and in the meeting, I learned something that I would like to share. Resentment is you drinking poison, expecting the other person to die, or you hurting yourself, expecting the other person to feel the pain. Saying it out loud doesn't make sense. But when I heard that in that meeting, oh boy, did that hit. That resonated really hard. So working with resentment within myself and bitterness helped me to develop a loving relationship and learn, or at least walk towards the path of learning how to forgive, even if it's just for myself. As you learned in week 3, the ego uses the body to create more separation in our relationships to others. When you perceive yourself as a separate body, inevitably, you project yourself as better than or less than someone else. This is what the Course calls the special relationship. The special relationship is based on seeing others as separate and different. Typically, we think special is a good thing. In this case, the concept of special implies that we're better or less than others, which heightens our faith in separation from oneness. In the special relationship, judgment, attack, idolizing, and comparing are at an all-time high. Whether you're judging the other person or judging yourself, you're experiencing the same ego nightmare. In fact, the Course teaches that judging others is the same thing as judging yourself. Since the Course perspective is that we are all one, judging someone else is judging everyone, including you. Okay, I've heard a lot of people tell me that they had some confusion about special relationship and seeing yourself as a separate body. So does that mean you can't embrace the differences that you are? No. Embrace the culture, embrace the religion, embrace the things that make you unique. Absolutely. However, just know that your uniqueness does not separate you from the grander scheme in life. So what do I mean by that? You can embrace the unique color that you are. Like if you are a box of crayons, right? And you demonstrate red and someone demonstrates purple, and then someone demonstrates brown, and someone demonstrates yellow, and someone demonstrates whatever. You can embrace their beauty of their uniqueness, their different colors. Okay, think of your culture, your religion, your language, and all of that as a specific color that you represent, but that doesn't erase the fact that that other person is a human being, just as you are a human being. All of us are residents of the planet Earth. That's what makes us the same. Our attitudes, our personalities, our body structures are unique attributes of us, unique representations of who we are. But that doesn't negate the fact that we are humans. So it takes a broader view of the world, if that makes sense. So that's what she's trying to bring us. That's what the course is trying to bring us into understanding that we are so much more than our unique qualities, attributes that we are representing. Because at the end of the day, when we go into that box, we all become the same thing, ashes and bones. And our unique attributes stay wherever they are. We all become light again. The true essence of us becomes light again. And that is what we share. We all share that we are all light. We all carry a body with bones and muscles and flesh and fascia and all that other stuff. And each body, physical body is what I'm talking about, reflects different attributes of us, which are truly unique. But at the end of the day, the true essence of you, the true essence of the human being is light, is love. Hopefully that brings it all to perspective. Okay, let's go back to the book. We all make special relationships in many ways. We have the special friend relationship with the person we perceive as our best friend. We have very high expectations of this person. Then there's the special parent relationship in which we make an idol of a parent and will always need to live up to their expectations or what we perceive to be their expectations. In the special work relationship, we place our boss or coworker on a pedestal and need their approval and validation to feel good enough. Alternatively, we make ourselves more special than those we employ. These are just a few examples of how the ego specialness creates separation. This is something that's going on nowadays with corporate versus the common worker. CEO thinks his profit means more than the well-being of the workers versus it's the workers that make my business successful. Therefore, we are equal. Do you see what I mean? These are just different crayons in a box. They're still crayons, even though one is purple while the other one's yellow. And then there's the big one, the mixed special with a side of fries, the ego's nastiest trick of all, the special love relationship. I bet you know this all too well. The romantic partner you thought was the answer to your problems, the key to your happiness, only to end in a tortured breakup that you replay in your mind for more than a decade. Sounds familiar? Okay, maybe I'm being a little bit dramatic, but it's more likely I'm spot on. Either way, I know we're all experienced this kind of ego torture in some way or another, because romantic love is the ego's ace of spades. The special love relationship is the trippiest of all special relationships because the ego convinces us that this one special person will save us. The ego substitutes the divine love within us with the special love relationship we've seen in movies or magazines. The special love relationship is based on the premise that something outside of us can fill up or compensate for what seems to be lacking inside. Replacing our inner presence of power and love with one special idol will always be false or fake. Have you ever heard that you can't love anyone else if you don't know how to love yourself? It's always going to be a question because there's something within us. We are born with it. It's that light. We can have others to assist to help us light up our passions or help us to relax when we are too fired up about something. But at the end of the day, it's us. We got to learn how to have that communication with us so we know what we can live with. But recognizing the presence of love within offers us real power. The ego's world teaches that there is separation between all special relationships. The special friend love, special romantic love. I want to make sure I'm on the right page. Am I on the right page? Special family love and special work love. I'm back up here. The ego can give love to one person and deny another entirely. This ego mentality is a spiral that deepens the dissociation from God's one love and heightens faith in separation. Special love is based on dependency and lack. The ego convinces us that we're alone, which leads us to desperately seek completion in others. This experience of lack grows out of our profound sense of separation from our real spiritual identity. In other words, because we're too busy looking for others' light, we forget that we have our own light within us. And then we pull away and away and away, trying to drag on to or catch on to somebody else's light while ignoring ours. And that doesn't help. That doesn't make sense. I'm going to pause on that because that sounded a little judgy, a little hurtful. So I apologize for that. But when we grab on to someone else, we forget who we are. And this process here is to try to awaken us, to empower us again, to embrace who you truly are, the loving human being that you are, the loving spiritual being, living, experiencing, breathing a human experience that you are. So thank you for your patience again with me as I read this book and try to be as intuitively and authentic with you as possible. Okay, I'm gonna go back. Believing this state of lack to be our reality, we seek special relationships to help us feel whole, regardless of how hard we try. We never actually achieve that feeling of wholeness because special love creates chaos and division. Our special love relationships lead us to jealousy, envy, and a constant state of fear of abandonment. This relationship is based on neurotic, fearful romance that can be the ego's chief weapon of keeping us in the dark. Because we're expecting the relationship to be like the movies, that's our reflection. If we ourselves don't know what a real love or authentic love, unconditional love feels in reality, we're going to seek it in fantasy. And then when it's not in our current reality, we will get disappointed because it doesn't look the same. So this process is to help us understand what unadulterated, unconditional love is and what it means for us, what it means for ourselves, and how to identify it to improve in our relationships with ourselves and others. For instance, maybe your ego has convinced you that you're not good enough without your special partner. This belief makes you extremely fearful of losing your one special love, and therefore you are always controlling the relationship to keep it intact. You may lash out in a jealous rage when your partner talks to someone else, or maybe you constantly worry whether the person is really in love with you. The special relationship can make us crazy in all kinds of ways. It can put us at war with each other as we project our fear onto our special partner. So that's the key thing. We're projecting our fear. We're allowing fear, instead of listening to fear and listening to why are you so scared and talking and discovering what the cause is, we're trying to focus on the symptoms and let fear run the bus versus changing the perception and allowing love for ourselves love for the relationship, and love for the other person as a person to see it through. Thinking that you'll find all your happiness in the arms of a special partner will always disappoint you because we're placing all of our expectations, we're attaching it to them versus not having expectations or any attachments. We're giving the power of our inner happiness, our inner light, we're giving it to someone else. Special love will never work, period. Think about it this way. What happens when the special idol ends the relationship? Your source of happiness and salvation ends, and your ego convinces you you are unsafe. Going back to yoga, the root chakra, the very first chakra, is the basis, it's your foundation, right? It's based on safety and security. When that is eliminated, that is gone, fear usually comes and runs the bus because it wants to find security. Our goal in life when we come in is to find connection. We strive for love. It's one of the 6 tenets of yoga based on Duga Lila. And Duga Lila is a teacher that I was introduced to during my yoga therapy practice and studies. And she bases her 6 tenets of yoga on the 12 steps of addiction. And one of the 6 tenets of yoga is life is a relationship. We as humans, we are a tribe nation. We are a tribe species. We live, we learn, we cook to be with a community, with a love, with a union, with a tribe. Okay. When we are alone, we need to rely on ourselves for safety, security, and nourishment. And since our nature is to be in communion with others, we seek to be part of the tribe. So we will tend to change our own nature, which is light, right? Light embraces light. We will change our own nature to be accepted by the tribe that we chose. And if that tribe no longer accepts us, we tend to feel unsafe and insecure. So we're trying to work with the root chakra to go back into our true essence, which is light and love. So that way, when we find the wrong tribe, we know that ain't our tribe. And we can go find a tribe that remembers its true essence, its true nature. Okay, let's go back to the book. This pattern happens far too often and is one of the ego's greatest tricks for keeping us in the darkness. The ego is very unforgiving in relationships. When the ego perceives attack, its response is to immediately attack back. Okay, so it's talking about shame. When your ego perceives attack, like the tribe is attacking you for not doing it, you tend to try to do whatever it is to be accepted back into the tribe. So you yourself will split and you start attacking yourself and have an internal war within you. So we're trying to allow you to understand when that internal war comes, it's not about letting ego, okay, fear, jump back into the driver's seat. It's try to take a pause, take a big, big pause and give yourself some space to process it, to allow yourself to talk to love so that way love and fear can have a chat and then love can overcome it. Okay, going back to the book. This type of ego pattern can go on for years, even a lifetime. If we're unaware of our ego's fear, forgiveness is a distant afterthought. Therefore, we stay stuck in the pattern of attack, thinking that we're protecting ourselves from being hurt. See what I mean? Fear is supposed to be a protector. Fear is trying to tell you you're going to get hurt. So in order for you to avoid getting hurt, do what the tribe is asking you to do, even though it's the wrong tribe for you. But in truth, we're only protecting the ego. When we hold on to past resentments in new relationships, We replay the negativity and rehearse the role of victim on a daily basis. So remember what I said? Resentment, according to what I learned from Al-Anon, is poison, bitter pill that you swallow, expecting the other person to get hurt. And the other person's not hurt, it's only you. And then you take on that pain, you take on that resentment, and here comes an innocent person, someone completely new, sees you, wants to give you what you so deserve. And because we don't trust it, because what happened in the last one, we don't trust it, we make them suffer. And it goes back to what we said today a little earlier on day 21. People have a hard time letting go of their suffering out of fear of the unknown. We will just prefer suffering all over again because it's familiar. And that's what happens. That's the replay. To make matters worse, we carry that same resentment into new experiences, placing blame and doubt onto more innocent people. See, it's a cycle. It keeps going and going. So what's the cause? The cause is the hurt. So what do we need to do? Focus on the cause and figure out, how can I let go of this? How can I let go of this pain? Because the other person who caused the pain is not here to resolve it or to repair it. So how can I repair it within myself? Just see it, understand what the implicit message is, and learn that I am love. I am not that resentment. I am not that bitterness. I am so much more than that. The ego's need to be right in all situations drains our energy and keeps us stuck in a cycle of fearful illusion. I have learned many great lessons that have reinforced that happiness always trumps being right. One example is based on a special relationship I created with a teacher whom I really respect and admire. I idolized this person in an unhealthy way. This person said something about me in public that upset me greatly. My immediate response was to go into self-protection mode and attack back. Well, we're going to discuss what the polyvagal theory is. So when she got upset, she went into her sympathetic brain, which is now, oh, I'm ready to fight. I'm going to get you good. Okay. I called several friends to complain. I cried, and then I swore I never speak to her again. Though I didn't directly attack her with my words or action, I had her in a headlock with my attack thoughts. This internal drama went on for weeks. So instead of going to the person that hurt her and saying, hey, this kind of hurt me, I did not appreciate you saying such things in public about me, she went off and discussed it with other people. As a miracle worker, I am considering myself a mindfulness worker. I am well aware of how the ego reacts to the feeling of being attacked. Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, wow. The Course teaches that the ego speaks first and loudest, squashing and silencing reason. I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to explain the polyvagal system, which was discussed and created by Porges. And it will discuss what she says by that, what she means by that, because we have 3 different brains. Even though we have one brain, it reacts differently. In this case, my ego was at the front line with a megaphone and a sledgehammer. This ego's reaction totally took me down. As time wore on, I began to pay attention to the way this resentment was affecting my energy and my happiness. My need to be right held me back from any chance of forgiveness and release. A Course in Miracles asks, would you rather be right or happy? Okay, I have some people, I know some people, I know me, I have done it too, that I would, you know what, I don't give a rat's patootie, I am right and you must submit. And then the anger and resentment and, oh my gosh, the intensity of me being stuck on being right ruined insight and ruined my day. So I've learned, you know what? I may be right, but this person's not ready to listen to whatever it is. I'm going to not allow this moment to ruin my day. And I'm just going to step away and leave them in whatever mind frame they are. I don't need to accept their mindset. I don't need to accept that gift. I can walk away and know, okay, I'm right, but you know what? I'm gonna stay happy because I know forcing you to understand or comprehend that I'm right and you're wrong, it's not gonna make me happy. It's not gonna keep me content. So to be content in my day, um, I said my piece and I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna walk away. It helps it helps in different relationships. There's certain things there's certain ways and certain things of understanding it, but if you ever had that conversation with an individual when you're trying to tell them a proven theory and they just totally don't agree and they are stuck in their ways, no matter how much you bang into their head, if their belief is going to stay stuck, instead of you getting frustrated, it's best that, you know what, I'm gonna walk away and keep your peace. Your peace is more precious than winning the fight. Okay, clearly the loving response is to choose happiness over the ego's need to be right. But happiness can be hard to achieve when you believe you've been deeply wronged. Okay, that's definite. When you've been deeply wrong and the other person doesn't want to admit that they've done it, how hurtful is that for you? It kind of like breaks your whole sense of being. Why don't you see that you've hurt me? Because they're not there. They're not there to see it. They don't have that light. They don't have that enlightenment to understand that they hurt you. So what are you going to do? We're going to feel the resentment to try to see, I want you to feel my pain. So I'm going to keep hurting you until you feel my pain. And then what's frustrating is, especially if they never feel your pain. And it's just a vicious cycle. Speaking for myself, I was in a relationship that someone really did hurt me. Like this individual hurt me really badly. And I was always disappointed that when I spoke to this individual, they would gaslight me. They would they would turn it around. They would make me feel awful about myself. That I would start doubting, who the hell am I? When I was sexually assaulted and the person was like, no, you were too pretty not to be touched. Are you trying to say you're trying to tell me that you don't want me to touch you because you're too pretty? I mean, what am I supposed to do? Be act blind? You know, stuff like that. It truly hurt. And I really wanted that person to understand, no, dude, that was truly disrespectful and even illegal. And they didn't, it's not that, I don't know if they cared or they didn't care or they didn't think of it that way, but nonetheless, we weren't seeing eye to eye. And it was destroying me more and more and more each time I tried to explain it. So to make me happy and to make it easier for me, I had to leave the relationship. Even if the other person hated me because I ended the relationship, I had to leave to protect me and go get more therapy for me to reset my loving perspective of myself. That's just how I interpreted this. You let me know how you interpret it. A lack of forgiveness hurts us in nasty ways. When the ego blocks us from forgiving, we inevitably take on a certain fearful archetype. So remember I mentioned that we get adaptations, right? So because we are going through this process, we tend to develop internal adaptations to help us move on with our lives with the hurt that we haven't forgiven yet, even if it's just for us. And that adaptation is to help protect us in the moment, but it could end up derailing us later. Here are some of the personality traits we pick up from the ego's unforgiving ways. The daily victim. When we're unwilling to forgive, we wake up each day feeling like a victim. We hold tight to our past hurt and resentment, replaying it in our mind over and over again. This automatic replay reinforces the ego's illusion and strengthens our perception of being the victim. Eventually, we identify so closely with the role of victim that we begin to establish that dynamic in all our relationships. When I first read this, I was like, but I am a victim of sexual assault. You trying to tell me that I'm supposed to go woo, and that's it, and I'm okay, I'm all chilly liling? No, it's a different, this is a different concept. I'm gonna call this the not the freeze, but the, you know, the fight, flight, freeze, or submit. I'm gonna call this the flight. Whatever, this is who I am. I'm just gonna run away from reality. This is, you know, it's part of our nervous system. And I'm gonna discuss that later. Well, actually, right after this. The angry boxer, when the ego feels attacked, its immediate response is to attack back. The ego has faith in fear and believes that we are at mercy of a cruel world. So it keeps its boxing gloves flung over the shoulder, always on alert to fight off an attack. These defense thoughts and energy bleed off the angry boxer and inevitably create more negative experience, the wicked cycle. And then we have the shut down and protected, submit or freeze. This is the person whose ego has convinced them to shut themselves off from the world, from fear of being hurt ever again. The shutdown person lives small, hides out, and evades all potential conflict by avoiding intimacy altogether. Okay, that's a good time to take a pause. Take a deep breath. Now it's a lot. You still got more to go. Okay, but I'm gonna give you a break so you can take a moment, because that was a lot to digest. And then I'm gonna come back to talk to you about the polyvagal theory, when she was talking about the brain, and then the fight, flight, or submit and freeze. Okay, so welcome back. I just pulled up a chart that I had on from my notes, from my yoga therapy notes. So just sharing that with you. Okay, so this is the polyvagal theory that Stephen Porges developed. Okay, so in the book, she mentioned the daily victim, the angry boxer, the shutdown and protected. Okay, so I'm going to work with the dorsal vagal. I'm going to work with the shutdown and protected first. This is when the body has, you know, I am done. I can't move anymore. I can't, not anymore. I'm done. I'm completely done. So I'm going to enlarge it a little bit so you can understand. When you're in the dorsal vagal, you are talking into your parasympathetic nervous system. So there are two nervous systems, of course. And the parasympathetic is our rest and digest, but it's also the completely depressed, like don't move system. So when it's completely overwhelmed, like when your mind is completely done, you're about to shut down, there's no more it can process, it can't eat anymore, cannot digest any more of the incoming stimuli that you are receiving. It's too much of a mess. You enter into this. This is the freeze or completely submit. I'm done. I'm done. I can't handle it anymore. And if you see this is the emergency state. When your body is trying to recover, like from an extreme trauma, like sometimes a head injury, a severe head injury, or a severe car accident, you know how some doctors will put the person into a medical coma. It gives the body a chance to handle, to process the trauma that it has received, so they can slowly bring the person back from the coma in a better state than what it was before. And this is what your body is doing. It has received too much stimuli. It's trying to process it, but it can't process it all at once. It needs more time. So it will shut you down completely. And yes, it conserves your energy, but here's it, you're overwhelmed. So you start to feel helpless, depression, numbness can happen, disassociation. an increased sense of shame. Do you see that? Is it too small for you to see? I mean, I can try to make it a little bigger, but shame occurs here. Okay. Shut down, hopelessness, preparation for, for death, trapped. In the dorsal vagal, in the emergency state, in this particular nervous system, you feel an increase of fuel storage and insulin activity, the endorphins that help numb and raise the pain threshold. So now you just don't feel the pain anymore. You completely numb. You decrease your heart rate, your blood pressure, temperature, muscle tone, facial expression, eye contact, intonation, awareness of the human voice, social behavior, sexual responses, immune response. It's all low here. So for me, I've been in this particular freeze moment. I've been in a particular environment that I felt so completely overwhelmed by the trauma that I was feeling. It was as if I was no longer there. I totally escaped my physical body and I ran into the recesses of my mind. I couldn't feel what that person was doing to me at that point. I escaped. And some of the individuals that may have experienced the same experience I'm trying to talk about may have done that, may have retreated. But I know there was a time I did, and there was nothing. There was nothing that brought me back except for me. I brought myself back when I thought I was okay and I was safe to come back. And then I felt this here. Okay. So it says that, so when your arousal increases, you can get into this part of the body, and then you can go into overwhelm and shut down. And then this is when we start to slow down ourselves again to come back to the ventral vagal. I'll move the closed captioning someplace else. Maybe you can see it. So hopefully you get to see that. Now, sympathetic, the angry boxer, right? Here it is. Here's the angry boxer. And here is the daily victim in this particular realm. Okay. So daily victim, flight. I'm gonna move away from you because I just can't deal with this. I know I'm the sucker, whatever. I'm just an idiot, and I'm just gonna retreat from this relationship. Angry boxer, you pissed me off, you hurt me, so I want to hurt you back. Oh, I can't wait. It's one of those two, and they both live in this realm right here, the sympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is, I can do something about it. I can either be the victim and say, F this, I'm out, or I can be the aggressor and say, fuck, F this, I'm gonna beat the out of you. You know what I mean? It's one of the two. And the sympathetic nervous system is activity. So if you can see it here, it increases your blood pressure, your heart rate, your fuel availability, your adrenaline, oxygen going to the vital organs, blood clotting, pupil size. But it can definitely decrease your fuel storage, your inner energy. Because it takes a lot of energy to be in this, similar to this here too. But this increases your fuel storage. And this is because this is supposed to be rest and digest. But if you're in overwhelm, it's going to make you numb. This won't make you numb. Your insulin activity will decrease. Digestion will decrease. You won't be hungry. Salvation, relational ability, you won't be able to think clearly in this particular realm. And your immune response is low. But being in the ventral vagal, right here, this is where we want to be. Okay, this is what we're trying to practice to be. This is what we're working on, that constant relationship with ourselves, reminding ourselves that we are loving human beings. We are a soulful, energetic being living a human experience with a physical body. But we are so much more than the physical body. We are that energetic being. And here's the social engagement, the connection. Notice what it says, connection, safety, oriented to the environment. So this is when the environment is at a homeostasis level. It's balanced. It's nurturing to you at home, in nature, with even yourself. It's nurturing. That's when you're joyful, you're in the present moment, you're grounded. You have that curiosity of, ooh, what's that? That, really connected to that little child, that curiosity of, ooh, everything is new and bright and big eyes and stuff. Compassion, mindful. This is what we're working on, that ventral vagal. And in the ventral vagal, we're back at the parasympathetic, but we're not in this part of the parasympathetic. We're in the rest and digest portion. We're not in the overwhelm. We're in the, everything is okay and I'm safe. So your digestion increases, your intestinal motility increases, resistance to infection, immune responses, rest, recuperation, circulation to non-vital organs, your oxytocin, yummy, yummy, right? And the number one thing that decreases is your defensive responses. Why? Because you're okay. You're in a safe space. And hopefully I provide you that while we're reading all of this stuff. I'm going to pause it again. So you can pause the video here while I pull up something else, get some water, digest, do a little shaking, do some somatic shaking. Remember in week 3, in the introduction at the end, I shook up a little bit. I jumped up and down. I did some sighing or humming. Do something to self-care while I pull up some more notes. I'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. So now we're in my trauma-informed brain-sensitive class notes that I took when I was in yoga therapy with the same teacher, Sarah Joy Marsh. This class is open. I do believe it's open to the public. So if you want to learn more about TIBS, that's the anagram for it, trauma-informed brain-sensitive portion of her classes and studies, you don't necessarily have to be a yoga instructor for it. You can learn this as an individual who is doing mental health, working with mental health, or just to learn more about you. She offers this in her on her website, and you can sign up to take the class. I will place a link in the description of this introduction for week 4. Okay. All right. So going back to Stephen Porges and the polyvagal theory, remember she was talking about your brain in the book. So in the book, she mentioned that we can have a different brain. I can't remember where exactly in the book she was talking about it. But here it is. It goes based on the polyvagal system. Okay. So on the polyvagal system of described by Stephen Porges, remember when I mentioned submit or freeze, the daily victim, I'm sorry, not the daily victim, the shut down and protected, right? That particular person, the shut down and protected individual, they are in their dorsal vagal parasympathetic. So remember that other picture I just showed? So this one has a picture of a turtle. Okay, so when you're entering in your dorsal vagal parasympathetic, the overwhelm, the I can't take this shit no more. I need to, I'm gonna shut myself down. I'm done. I've had too much stimuli is into it, and I need to go into that comatose state. That's considered the lowest evolutionary option. It's linked to the reptilian brain. That's why I said we have different brains within the brain. And the reptilian brain is your basic psychological housekeeping in the body temperature, your heart rate, your respiration, your hunger, your instincts for movement or rest. So in the book, she mentioned that when she had a certain thing, she couldn't think right. All of a sudden, she just shut down, and she wasn't able to. Yeah, here it is. She says, my immediate response was to go into self-protection mode and attack back. She went into the sympathetic portion of her body, the fight. I called several friends to complain. I cried, and then I swore I never speak to her again. Though I didn't directly attack her with my words or actions, I had her in a headlock with my attack thoughts. Okay. And what was the other way that she said it? Oh, it's driving me crazy that I can't find it in the book, but we just read it. But when the mind when the mind is overwhelmed and done, it just goes back to the basics. And the basics is to keep you alive. Done. I'm not gonna have logic thoughts. I'm not gonna try to connect to my body. I'm definitely not connecting to my emotions. I am just going to the basics. Breathe in, breathe out. And is she alive? Is he alive? Are they alive? That's it. I'm just resting. I'm done. No stimuli, no more stimuli coming in. That's it, done. Just keep them alive. Have that heartbeat moving. Just the basics. Right? So if at that point we are not resourced enough to address the stimuli. Good or bad. We are not resourced to address the stimuli because we've had it, we've done. Now we're completely trying to protect. So we go into our shells, like the turtle here. Okay. And that's the reason why that's overwhelmed. So that's the shutdown. So that's what Stephen Porges was discussing, that we go into 3 different types of our brains. Okay. So now here we are with the angry boxer or the daily victim, right? Now we're totally in our sympathetic processing, as I mentioned it before. Now in polyvagal theory, he considers it the mid evolutionary option. So this is related to our mammalian brain and the system that our dogs and cats are reliant upon, right? What animals are close to. So here's the angry cat, the angry kitty that my teacher used as an example. And the sympathetic brain is also referred to as the limbic or emotional brain. This is where our emotions lie. Okay. So this is where we process the sensory input, the amygdala and the hippocampus. Remember what I said? The amygdala is your fire alarm. That's the alert. That's the, hey, this is where your fear response can kick in, and it tells you something's off, right? And the hippocampus is your file clerk. It's the one that keeps a hold of all the memories that causes this to turn on. And if this is oversensitive, there might not be a file for this in here. That's why we have to be careful of what we are processing, what we receive in our brain. And it signals for fight or flight reactions. This is the sympathetic brain. So this is where either we become the daily victim, as she describes in the book, or we become the angry boxer. So we're living in our emotions, and it disconnects us from logic. So although we feel the emotion, instead of allowing ourselves to take a pause to allow the emotion to speak, okay, emotion, what are you feeling right now? What's going on? What am I trying to process? And understanding it with love for yourself, not necessarily love for the situation, but loving for yourself, to be like, okay, yo, this is how I feel. So you have the time and the space to open up and process the emotions, so that way you can connect to the other brain that we're about to go to, so you can logically explain what's going on. We detach from our divine self. We detach ourselves from the logic and stay purely in the emotion limbic brain, which is completely on the sympathetic spectrum. Now the ventral vagal parasympathetic, oh my goodness, my words. So remember in that chart I showed you again, when we are at a nice status, We're not overwhelmed. We go back to the parasympathetic. That's the rest and digest mode, the I am okay, I am safe. I have my connection. Nothing in my environment within me or around me or outside of me is causing me any harm. I'm okay. All right. That is the optimal evolutionary option. It's the higher level social mammals rely on. And my teacher here picked a beautiful group of gorillas. And that's when we use our neocortex brain. That's the higher social engagement brain. It's associated with collaboration, context, perspective, and communication. So the process, this journey that we're on, we're trying to allow our emotions, our basic needs, click into right here. Okay, that might be a lot again. So take another moment. I'm going to pause the video again. You can pause the video, give yourself a break, take some deep breath, jump up and down for a moment, and then you can unpause to come back. I just wanted to show you another picture of the three brains as I was discussing before. So I had to go into my other notes from my 800-hour studies just to show you and demonstrate the brain and where the three brains lie. So right here where the amygdala and the hippocampus live, that's the reptilian complex. That is just, oh, actually, no, I'm sorry, scratch that. This is where, this right here, the reptilian complex, that's the brain that controls your heartbeat, your breath, your basics for survival. That's it. That's where you are there for submit and freeze. That is your basic survival parts. It lives right there. The limbic system, this is where your emotions, empathy, and parental understanding, caregiver, implicit messaging lives. As you see, it's right here in the yellow. Hopefully you can see that. That is where your amygdala and hippocampus lives at, right in that area, right there. I'm gonna see if I can put my thing there again. Right in this area right here. The neocortex, see how much is here, right here. This is all the neocortex. This is where logic and abstract thought occurs. According to Stephen Porges, his name is right here, he's the one that designed the polyvagal theory. When we are in extreme stress, such as assault, any type of abuse, we go right here because that's where we're trying to find out survival. Our basic needs are to be met right in here, okay? And once we start to allow ourselves to be in a safe space, once we're in a safe space, we're a safe container, and we can take deep breaths and allow the emotion not to see it as a defense mechanism, not to see it as an enemy, not to see it as anything else, but just there, and allow the emotion to just be there and just watch it without any resistance, knowing that I'm in a safe space. I'll be able to process it and see what emotions coming up, and then I can be able to process it in here because this is met, this is in a safe container, and then I'll be able to understand it. And these are the brains that we're trying to affect and work with as we're going through this process of creating miracles with this book. Okay. I could share a lot more that I've learned in yoga therapy, but it might be a strict overwhelm. So whenever you guys have any questions, please give me a call, email me, contact me in however way I make myself accessible. All right, so now we're going to go back to the book. Okay, I'm going to stop the share and go back to the book. These are just a few of the many ways the ego's lack of forgiveness holds us back in relationships. Letting go of our need to be right and surrendering to forgiveness is the only way out of ego's unforgiving nightmare. Letting go of our need to just letting go of resistance. Okay, that's what we're trying to do. Letting go of resistance and not surrendering, not completely submitting or shutting down, but allowing us to have a increased space to process, window of tolerance will allow us to move through the ego processing. Speaking of window of tolerance, I know I mentioned that a lot before, so let me pause the video again to show you a window of what I mean by window of tolerance. Okay, so I found this PDF to give you a definition of where the window of tolerance comes from, okay? It was developed by Dan Siegel, a clinical professor of psychiatry. And the window of tolerance describes the best state of arousal or stimulation. You're processing stimuli. So if you're getting too much information that your body cannot handle, it will go into what the polyvagal theory does. It will bring you into one of those states, either the dorsal vagal, which brings you into the reptilian brain, or the sympathetic, which is the fight or flight, which is your mammalian brain, the limbic brain, which is totally emotions. Okay, and so when you are hypo aroused, that's when you completely become overwhelmed. You turn into the submit or freeze response, which is now your dorsal vagal. I'm just going into my basic needs. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. And I'm not doing anything else. When you are hyper aroused, that is when you are in your fight or flight, your sympathetic. Totally, my emotions are running the bus. There is no reason to this. Absolutely none. I'm not in the mood to process it because I am processing it as I'm doing it at the current moment in time. I am not in a safe space to allow myself to process it. Okay, so in which we are able to function and thrive in everyday life. When we exist within this window, we are able to learn effectively, play, and relate well to others and ourselves. However, if we move outside the window, we can become hyper aroused or hypo aroused. So let me see if I can find a new thing to show ya. Here it is. Here's my teaching stuff again. So going back to that screen. Oh, I was trying to share it. Where's the new share? Oh. So now you're looking at my notes, right? So this is describing the window of tolerance that I was talking about with the polyvagal theory that I also mentioned. So if you see, if you are hypo aroused, you're going to be right there. And if you're hyper aroused, you're going to be there. So we're trying to stay within that, oh, I'm grounded, I'm curious, I'm flexible, I'm present. But the only way that we can do that and staying in that brain is by processing the other. So when we get into that fight or flight response, taking deep breaths, counting, counting 1 breath in, 2 breaths in, 3 breaths in, trying to find ourselves to get back into that state so that way we are in a safe space enough to process the stimuli that we're receiving. Gives you a pause into. So in other words, if fear is driving that bus, you're asking fear, hey, there's a rest stop there. Aren't you hungry? And you're pulling off the bus. You're not switching drivers in mid-drive. You're taking a break for a moment and allowing yourself to have a conversation with fear so that that love can go into and be the driver at this time. Okay? All right, let's stop the share. And whoops, I moved the camera. Let's go back to the book. If we truly want to enjoy our relationships, we must respect them through the miraculous act of forgiveness. A Course in Miracles suggests we use this affirmation. I could see peace instead of this. When we choose for peace, we'll put down the boxing gloves, come out of hiding, and throw down the F word, which is forgiveness, everyone, not the other one. The process of forgiveness requires willingness to see things differently. The course doesn't suggest we pretend like nothing happened. See, that's the key. Don't pretend that nothing happened. Something did happen, okay? However, we're going to acknowledge that our egos experience and choose to perceive it with love. So I see that I'm totally pissed about this stuff, but I am not going to take my pissy action towards you. I'm going to retreat to a safe space and see how I can perceive it with love now. I know it happened, but how can I see it differently? That's what I'm doing. It's about the receiver. I received a message and I need to process what message I received. A daily practice of willingness is our greatest guide to truthful forgiveness and release. Another powerful affirmation for reinforcing the forgiveness process is to say, I'd rather be happy than right. Choosing happiness is always the path of least resistance. And that's what it is. It's about resistance. Now, that does not mean because I see injustice happening, I'm going to walk away because I'd rather be happy than right. Okay. If there's injustice there and you can do something about it, then do something about the injustice because there is no love there and you're looking for love, right? If there is no love there, find the love in the situation by approaching the injustice and trying to place love in the situation. If you can't fix it, find someone's call to do the injustice. Does that make sense? If there is injustice for one person, there's injustice for all. If there is no peace for one person, there is no peace for all. So sooner or later, it's going to come out. Okay. All right, here it is. Choosing happiness is always the path of least resistance. When you confirm your commitment to happiness, you weaken your faith in resentment. That's what this is about. Don't take it to anything else. This is what it's about, working within ourselves. Finally, it's important to commit to releasing the victim mentality. If you honestly want to release your resentment, you have to no longer want to be the victim. We often get caught in the role of victim because the ego thrives on it. Getting out of this role requires a commitment to see things differently. If you're the angry victim, try this powerful request, intention, or prayer from the course. I am not the victim of the world I see. Or I am not the victim of the world I put myself in. Whenever you notice yourself getting caught up in victimhood, simply say this prayer and gently remind yourself that you'd rather be happy. Happy with who? Happy with you. Choosing happiness is a full-time job. We have many obstacles that get in the way of our peace. So we must commit to letting go of petty resentment, of victim mentality, and fear. We must surrender to love. We must surrender to love for ourselves. So we're surrendering to love within ourselves. This is all about having a better relationship, loving relationship with ourselves. So instead of putting ourselves as he hurt me, even though he's out of the picture and he left, like he's gone, he or she is gone, they are gone, and you continue to find that loop, you know what? I see that I am hurt. I am severely hurt. I love myself so much. I'm going to walk away from this and go heal myself. I'm going to find my own healing. I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to go and meditate. I'm going to go and do what I need to do to digest what I just received. Okay, the stimuli. That's what she's talking about. I took these steps into my forgiveness practice and surrendered to the willingness to be happy rather than right. After a week of full-blown surrender, I experienced a quantum shift. In my morning meditation, I began to think about the teacher I'd been resenting. In that instant, an overwhelming sense of love came out of nowhere. My inner guide led me to call on love and experience a tremendous sense of gratitude. In that moment, I released her. I cried with joy as I let go of the petty resentment and opened my heart to forgiveness. Then 10 minutes later, I checked my email. There was a message in my inbox from that same teacher. In that same instance that I released her, She sent a loving email acknowledging how proud she was of me. I laughed at the little wink from the universe, and I relished in the miracle. Love has the power to transform any situation. You just have to choose to be happy rather than right. This story about my teacher offers up a great example of the unholy relationship transformed to love. A Course in Miracles dedicates 10 chapters of the text, chapters 15 to 24, to transforming the ego's unholy relationship into a holy relationship through the practice of forgiveness. The holy or loving relationship is the ego's unloving relationship transformed through forgiveness and love. When you restore your mind back to love, reconnect to oneness, and release the ego separation, the loving, holy relationship sets in. This requires a serious commitment to the miracles and a whole lot of surrender. Every relationship offers you the opportunity to grow toward an unconditional, unadulterated love. The Course emphasizes how every encounter is an unconditional, loving encounter, because every relationship offers us the opportunity to transcend the ego's false perception and move past the fearful, adulterated relationship. Your relationship to a cab driver, an intern, a volunteer, a family member, or a lover are all equal opportunities for you to make the relationship not about conflict, separation, and fear, but rather love. The ego is present in every encounter, but the Course suggests that we use relationships as learning devices for overturning the ego's false perceptions. To transform a relationship from fearful, unloving, conditional love to a pure, unadulterated, unconditional love, you must change the intention for the relationship. The intention of the ego is to maintain control over the perception that the other person is separate through attack, judgment, jealousy, and so on. The ego uses fear to keep the cheap drama alive within a relationship. When the ego's goal is to maintain control over the relationship, your thoughts steer far away from forgiveness and acceptance, and the boxing gloves come out. When your ego is driving the relationship, you can be sure to think crazy thoughts and do crazy things. The ego convinces us that we're protecting ourselves by thinking attack thoughts towards our partner, when we, in effect, we're actually creating more attack. So you can love yourself enough. If you think your partner is cheating on you, you love yourself enough to accept their true colors and walk away. Don't be right. I knew you were cheating. No. If the partner is cheating, love yourself enough, accept their true nature, and walk away. That is loving the relationship. That is seeing the thing as loving, because you're loving yourself and you're embracing their identity that they chose without trying to attack the person who they're cheating on or attack them for cheating on you. You just say, oh, I love myself too much to embrace this. I'm going to embrace how you chose to represent yourself, and I'm out. Okay. The miracle worker's intention is quite the opposite. When the goal of the relationship is to find peace and love, okay, you can find peace and love in that cheating partner by peacefully, lovingly leaving the relationship behind. That's how we can do it. A much different experience occurs when you follow the miracle. Let's make sure we got the right page. Ooh. When you follow the miracle worker's goal for relationships, you're guided to surrender your fear to your inner guide for correction. You're not expected to just let go of the ego overnight. But much like all the exercises in this book, the simple solution to the ego special relationship is to turn it over to your ing for healing. This spiritual act of surrender releases you from the ego's grip and opens up your consciousness to receive guidance. When I find the ego making special relationships difficult, I invite my inner guide to act as the invisible intermediary whose goal is to bring the connection back to love. So she invites her higher self, her light within her, to provide her space so that way she can process within her window of tolerance. Though this may be hard for your ego to accept, the purpose will become clear. Your ing shifts the goal of the relationship from one in which you defend specialness and separation to one in which you experience oneness and wholeness. Your inner guide will lead you to a new purpose of the relationship. Ooh, I don't know what happened there, but hopefully you're back. Okay, so you and your partner have different interpretations of yourself. So you can be a color blue and your partner can be the color green, and you can both identify yourselves as blue and green, but the oneness of the relationship is you're both crayons. You just color one way and your partner colors another way, but the unity, the oneness of you both are that although you color differently, you're both crayons. Okay. It's important to be mindful that the ego will be uncomfortable with the miracle worker's goal. As it says in the course, as these two contemplate their relationship from the point of view of this new purpose, they are inevitably appalled. Their perception of the relationship may even become quite disorganized. Well, you know, green is going to say, but you're not green and you color differently. Everything you color is blue. Why is everything blue? Why can't you be green? Because I'm blue and I'm going to color everything blue. Why can't you be blue? Why can't you color yourself green? Because I'm green. So instead of identifying each other's differences and uniquenesses, you know what, sweetie? You're a crayon and you colored life so differently. It's in a different way. I love the way you color your green. And oh, sweetheart, I love the way you color your blue. You know, stuff like that. Oh, I just love how we are both crayons. Their perception of the relationship may even become quite disorganized. And yet the former organization of their perception no longer serves the purpose they have agreed to meet. We agree to meet each other as crayons, not as blue and green, because we love each other. When we unite, we make a whole new color, blue-green. When you invite love to intervene in your unloving, judgmental relationship, the ego will go to town. The ego believes that to be safe in relationships, you must stay in control. Therefore, expect some ego backlash as I open you up, this week to work in relationships, and expect many miraculous shifts. The shifts that occur result in what the course refers to as the holy instant, but I'm going to call it as the unadulterated, unconditional, loving instant. The moment you let go of the ego's drama, when you both join in this holy union, letting love host the relationship rather than the ego, the relationship can be very enjoyable. You will feel a sense of relief and freedom. But even though you may experience a holy instant, the other person may resist. If the other is dependent on the ego's perception of the relationship, then he or she will likely be uncomfortable with your change. This happens often. Think about those times in your life when you were willing to grow and your partner was not. When that happens, the romantic relationship ends and the form of the relationship changes. People tend to get distraught when relationships change in form, but actually, it's fine. A breakup, romantic or otherwise, can be the biggest drama for the ego. But from the course's perspective, these changes occur naturally when you're committed to love. If the former relationship changes through forgiveness, you may feel sad, but you still receive the gift, spiritual growth. So in other words, if your partner who's green and you are blue doesn't quite understand that we're both crayons and we're both drawing the same picture differently, but we both put a part of ourselves into this picture and we're both as equally crayons and equally colorful in existence, and wants to say, well, you're too blue, I want to be with black because black puts me within the lines, well, then you can lovingly, because they're too green, lovingly say, I love you enough to let you be whoever you want to be. And I love myself enough to say, this is no longer for me. The relationship offered you an opportunity to choose your ing's perception over your ego. When you choose to let love host your relationship, it doesn't matter whether you stay or go. All that matters is that your eternal shift towards love. This is when the relationship is made loving unconditionally in your mind. Bringing love into all your relationships will dramatically change your life. I've recently undergone a miraculous transformation in this area. I've been a student of the course for 7 years. Oh my gosh, I haven't even embraced the course. I've heard of it, but I didn't read it that long. So I've become accustomed to witnessing my ego in action. I've been a yoga instructor and been practicing. I've been a yoga instructor now for professionally for 12 years. Right? 12 years? Yeah. Or I think 11 years. I think it's 11 years. I'm sorry. But I've been practicing yoga for more years than that. And yoga has done the same process for me as A Course of Miracles has done for her. So I've become accustomed to witnessing my ego in action. A regular practice of outing your ego is key to being a miracle worker. For years, I've practiced outing my ego each time I'd focus on separation rather than oneness. I found that I was great at applying the course's principles of forgiveness in relationships that were really important to me, but I was less likely to consider the F word, which for her is forgiveness and oneness in relationships. How many people have done that? I perceived as less significant. I saw certain relationships as more important or at the forefront of my life, while others were not as present. For instance, in my romantic arena, I proudly practice the F word every day, consciously supporting an unconditional, unadulterated love relationship. But in certain business relationships or connections to people I met briefly on the street, I was less likely to throw down the F word and practice oneness. Upon realizing this, I turned to my ing for help. I asked my inner guide to help me bring an equal amount of loving intentions to all my relationships and to help me be more egalitarian with my perceptions. Outing my ego to my ing never fails to restore my miracle mindset. When I bring my ego to my ing for healing, I'm often guided to open A Course in Miracles for the next solution. The same day I asked for help, I opened the text of the course to this passage. Even at the level of the most casual encounter is the possibility for two people to lose sight of separate interests, if only for a moment. That moment will be enough. The message couldn't have been clearer. My inner guide had nailed it once again. I was to practice love and forgiveness, even at the level of the most casual encounter. Though I perceived myself as deeply connected to the course, I had still missed a major step to practice those principles in all my affairs. Once again, I was led to a new opportunity to invite my ing to lead the way. My inner guide always has my back. I bring up this story to inspire you as you begin your mindful-minded practice in relationships. This week, don't just dedicate the work to one special relationship that's been driving you nuts. Instead, I encourage you to apply this week's exercise to all the relationships in your life, even those that last only for a few minutes. A stranger on the street, a cashier in a shop, or a chance encounter in an airport all offer you an ego nightmare or unadulterated, unconditional bliss. It's your choice. So be prepared to work with all kinds of relationships this week, and do not emphasize one special relationship. Throughout this week, we're going to blast through more fear and raise your mindfulness mind, consciousness, to awesome new heights. Outline next is a breakdown of what you can expect. Okay, so for tomorrow, you'll pay attention to what you think about others. This is an exercise in getting clear about how the ego has convinced you of separation. This work will help you see that even when you treat people kindly, if your thoughts don't match your actions, you'll still caught up in ego warfare. The goal for this day is to become highly aware of how the ego separates and makes special. Also keep in mind that just because you're nice to them, but they're not nice to you, you can accept their true nature and be like, you know what? I love you. And this, I'm talking about agape love. Like, I accept you because you're a freaking human being. I accept that you're a human being that doesn't recognize what nice is or doesn't know what love is. And I love my peace so much, I'm out. You know what I mean? Okay. But you can still, but if you still see injustice, you can say, I have the love relationship secure enough to know that your loving response is not secure and you're seeing yourself as separate, but my fellow human being that you're abusing needs love, and I'm going to serve to make sure they are loved and they know that they're loved. I'm going to empower them to do that. You know, so if you're empowering them by voting, by donating money to their cause, by seeing that if they're hurt, see that you can call 911 to get them assistance. Do you know what I mean? Showing love in certain ways. Okay. Exercise day 23 are geared towards surrendering your ego to your ing for healing. I'm not going to read all of this because we're going to keep practicing. So we're going to, from the seemingly insignificant to the most important relationships in your life, you will be guided to let your ing lead the ego to the light. So I'm going to let you, you can pause it here to read the rest if you want. I'm going to move on. The practice on day 24 is based on this lesson from the course workbook. Kindness created me kind. This affirmation reminds us that we came from a loving, kind place. The way we return there is to act with kindness. So even if you, I have some friends that did not come from a loving place from their family dynamic, but your true nature, remember, we are creatures of light living a human experience in a physical body. Universe is kind. The stars, the planet, kind. Light, the true nature is kindness. So we're going to go back to our true nature, even if it has to eradicate the path of our upbringing. Day 25 will help you understand the principle that we project onto others, we reflect back on ourselves. The course teaches us that the thoughts we have about others are a mirror reflection of the thoughts we believe to be real about ourselves. Day 26. The practice on day 26 helps you understand how the ego uses forgiveness to get what it wants, whereas your ing uses forgiveness to return to love. You can read the rest. Day 27, you'll be guided to pay attention to the holy instant, or the unconditional love instance, the universal love instance, not the romantic love, but the I accept you. We are all a box of crayons and we color differently type of thing. Each time you shift your perception from separateness to oneness, you'll document the experience. And then day 28, you will recap and prepare for week 5 by reading the introduction, like we just did now. And I'll add in some yoga therapy stuff that I've learned, some yoga concepts, some psychiatry concepts, and whatever other explanations that we would need for that week, I will bring it in as well. So I thank you for your patience, and I thank you for allowing me to not only read these 8 pages, but introduce you to other concepts. This week's work will reinforce one of the primary principles of this practice, that all thinking produces form on some level. Each thought you have directly affects the way you experience your life. As you start to change the way you think about the relationships, the way you experience them will change. Letting go of negativity and resentment will help you see more oneness and love in everyone. You will no longer feel comfortable judging, comparing, attacking, and gossiping. You'll intuitively want to feel a more loving connection with everyone you meet. It's much more enjoyable to live the loving way in relationships. Follow the guided steps and expect miracles. I know it, again, this is talking about the grander scheme of things. You will intuitively want to feel a more loving connection with everyone you meet. That doesn't mean it's going to occur. There's going to be injustices. You're going to see what injustice is, and you're not going to want to embrace injustice. You're not going to want to embrace on things that do not allow you to be peaceful and have connection. You're going to want to go towards love at all times. That is the goal of what we're working on. And that's what's going to happen. You're going to get to see what true love is, what's unadulterated, pure, unconditional, that type of perspective, and lean towards that more than the other way. Remember, we're talking about a broader spiritual spectrum, and we can align it with certain things. That does not mean that you are to accept abuse, because if you accept abuse, you're not loving yourself. You're not allowing that loving connection to you. Love the person enough to know, hey, you're abusive. That's how you want to show your love. I'll accept that that's who you are by walking away. Okay? I hope that brings some clarity into what we're going to do tomorrow for day 22. I love you guys. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate. This is a lot to chew on. A lot. It's a lot to process. So if you feel overwhelmed, can you go into that freeze and submit? Allow yourself to do something somatic. Take a shower, do something extra good for you. Put on some music that you can dance to. Put on that favorite movie of yours that you actually know and memorize the script. Do something good for you. Get into your rest and that digest state. And then I'll see you tomorrow to start day 22. Much love to you all.